Okay, so I'm with Sally Fallon Morto.
Morell, Morell,
How'd you say that?
Morell.
Morell. Okay. What state are you in?
I'm in Maryland, Southern Maryland, just south of Washington, D.C.
And you have a farm?
We have a farm here. Yeah. We
Okay,
raise dairy cows and pigs and chickens.
raw milk.
Yeah.
Sally Fallon Morell? Is that
Right, Morell.
Morell is the head of the Weston Price Foundation. How long have you been in charge of the Weston Price Foundation?
Okay, so it was founded in 1999. So we're coming up on 23 years.
Wow. So just a little bit of background. Who was Weston Price? They promote his work. Weston Price was a dentist in the 1920s. And I guess he was really well connected medically, anthropologically. And this was at a time where it was still possible to go and observe traditional cultures like they had lived for hundreds of years, which he did because they were getting reports back of peoples with near perfect teeth and bone formations in the head. And he went to these places and he observed how they ate, how they lived. And it was also at a time when these places were just opening up to modernism. And he was also able to go back and observe the changes once they adopted modernized diet, specifically replacing animal fats, saturated fats with cooking oil. So why don't you talk to us about some of these places that where all did Weston Price go? I know he went to Switzerland, Alaska, Scotland. How did he finance all these travels?
I think he was a successful dentist in Cleveland, Ohio, and every summer he would take a couple of months off and go to the most remote place that he could find. The first place he went was Switzerland, and that's because the remoteness of Switzerland was rapidly disappearing. They were putting roads in all through the country. But he went to a village that was not connected to the outside world with a road. You had to walk over mountain passes to get there. And these people had beautiful, like as he was expecting to find, had beautiful straight teeth, very sturdy and strong, and no cavities. Nobody needed braces. So this diet was a dairy food diet. They had cattle and goats. And they lived off raw dairy products, raw milk, raw cream, raw butter, raw cheese. And they also grew grain and had a very dense sourdough rye bread. So this was a dairy and grain diet, also some meat, and including the organ meats. And that's one thing that you find in all these cultures, whether they were eating sharks or frogs or caribou or whatever, they ate the whole animal. And they ate the organ meats in preference to the muscle meats, and they ate the fat of the animal.
And when you talk about this culture in Switzerland being dairy based, you're talking about raw milk and raw cheese.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
And they had no tuberculosis. And yet the health officials in the rest of Switzerland were blaming raw milk for causing tuberculosis. Actually, the old timers treated tuberculosis with raw milk. But
okay, where else did he go?
So the next place he went, and this was the only other European group, was an island off the coast of Scotland and the Outer Hebrides. And again, he found very healthy, happy people and no cavities, no tuberculosis. And their diet was completely different. It was based on seafood of every type, including the livers of the fish and also oats. They were able to grow oats on the island.
Okay.
And then after that, let's see, he went to, I don't know exactly in which order, he went to Alaska and studied the Inuit in Alaska. He went to the South Seas, to Polynesia. He went.
I heard you say in a speech once that he talked about how easy it was to have children for the women in Alaska.
So when your nutrition is really good, starting before conception and all through the period of growth, you end up with beautiful straight teeth and a wide face. And also the pelvic opening is round, which is the ideal shape for the baby to get through. And these people, these women didn't have any trouble having babies. It was painless and easy.
What was their diet up in Alaska? Were these Eskimos?
Oh, the Eskimos in Alaska, it was a very high fat diet based on game and fish. Very few plant foods in the diet.
Seal blubber, probably.
Lots of seal blubber, seal fat, but that was true everywhere. As soon as within one generation of changing the diet, as soon as the parents changed the diet to what he called the displacing foods of modern commerce, then the problems showed up immediately in the next generation: crowded, crooked teeth, and pain in childbirth,
cancer, and 100 other diseases,
heart disease, and mental and emotional problems as well.
Now, when you talk about this displacement, are you talking about seed oil and refined grains?
The first thing to come in was sugar and white flour, but the seed oils also were one of these displacing foods of modern commerce. And basically, the people were just not nourished anymore. These foods are empty. He called them the displacing foods of modern commerce. There's no nutrition in them. And they were taking the place, they were displacing the foods that they should be eating, that they had eaten in the past.
Okay, so where else did he go? You mentioned the South Seas. What kind of diet did they eat in the
South Seas? It was seafood and pig. And the South Sea diet had a lot of carbohydrates because it's a warmer climate. So they had tubers, yams, or other foods like this. And then in Africa, he found tribes that ate grains or starchy foods, but again, it was animals of the hunt and fish and milk. In fact, the healthiest people he ever found were the Nurs tribes in Sudan, and they had everything. They had fish, they had game animals, and they had the dairy products. But they also had plant foods. They had grains. It was a mixed diet, and I think that's good news for us that we don't have to follow any kind of extreme diet. We can have animal foods and plant foods, and
it seems like as a reaction to all the craziness in modern life, people will often adopt different kinds of exotic diets for blood type. I know Jordan Peterson, the famous Canadian psychologist, he went on an all meat diet, and that had dramatic side effects. He wound up in the hospital for a year because he became so sensitive to food that he wasn't eating anymore, particularly sulfites in dried fruit. So that didn't end well for him. But I heard you say once that the problem with these diets is they're all made by men, and in the sense that
thought up by men. They're not thought up by moms who have to put food on the table day after day that the children will actually eat.
So
if your kids won't eat it, it's not a good diet.
Probably people today aren't going to want to eat the fish heads, but what can we do to copy Weston Price's ideas, particularly for those who want to have children and healthy families?
And that's really why I wrote Nourishing Traditions, to show how especially European people have incorporated these nutrient-dense foods into the diet in a really delicious way. So with the fish heads, you make a fish head soup and a beautiful reduction sauce with the broth, and it's amazing what a delicious food that can be, starting off with just a fish carcass. Okay.
Yeah, I read that book a really long time ago, and I can't recommend it high enough. The first part of the book is text, and then the second part is all recipes. When did that book come out?
Well, the first edition came out in '96, and then I had a second edition come out in 1999. That's the edition that's still out, and I've sold over 700,000 books.
Wow.
done well.
Is that the reason that you started the Weston Price Foundation, was because of the response to that book?
Not really. It was that we thought that we needed to keep up with additional research. There's always new research coming in, more and more in the papers. For example, we're reading the push to plant-based vegetarian diets. And we just thought we needed an organization that was completely independent of the food industry and of the government to counter all this and to show where the studies were wrong and to show where the fallacies are and to show the studies that show something else.
So a lot of vegetarians eat a lot of soy. What do you think of soy?
Yeah, soy is very toxic. It's a toxic plant. It depresses thyroid function. And it also contains these isoflavones, which are endocrine disruptors, which will cause men to grow breasts and cause women to stop menstruating. And we know this very well because we have an experiment going on right now in the Department of Corrections of the state of Illinois. They've switched to pretty much an all soy diet. And it's basically incapacitated. Well, the women stopped menstruating. So they stopped the diet for the women and gave them meat again. But the men are still getting this diet, 45,000 prisoners. And if they cannot afford to buy food in the commissary, they really do get very ill with terrible digestive problems, thyroid problems, and a lot of them grow breasts.
And the soy now is genetically modified for the most
Well,
part,
I mean,
isn't
it's
it?
genetically modified, but before it was genetically modified, it was still toxic. It's
Yeah.
even more toxic today, but it's not it shouldn't be used as a food. In Asian countries, it was used as a flavoring.
Uh-huh.
And it was fermented for a long time and used as a flavoring.
What kind of other side effects do you see with the men in this prison?
Well, they lose their libido. We're seeing a lot of digestive cancers, colon cancer, for example.
Probably in prison, they don't have much libido anyway because they're there, by themselves.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
But if they can shop in the commissary, if they can afford that, they know better. They buy meat and cheese and pork
Sure.
and fish and stuff. But if they can't do that, then they're forced to eat this soy, and they're useless when they come out. They cannot hold a job or anything because they're so sick.
I bet you over the years have had people writing to you and the foundation talking about the dramatic effects they've seen in their own health when they start taking some of your recommendations. Can you give some examples of this?
Oh, we have so many grateful members. The biggest, most frequent one we get is couples who could not conceive. And when they got on our diet, and we say, don't try to conceive immediately. You need to be on this diet for a while, build up your nutritional stores, and then they have beautiful babies. And they're just so grateful that we've,
And what kind of food do they feed these babies when they come out of the womb?
Well, let's just start before the womb.
Okay.
Because we say to this diet, you need to do it for 6 months before conception. So it's a diet very high in animal fat, organ meats, liver in one form or another, cod liver oil, egg yolks, butter, raw milk, fermented foods, and so forth. And then once they conceive, you can continue that diet. And the babies, of course, should be breastfed. That's raw milk. Breast milk is raw milk. And the mom should be continuing this diet while she breastfeeds. And then the first foods for baby are pureed liver and egg yolk, two most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And then the baby gets nutrient-dense food as he grows. And after weaning, baby should be getting raw milk.
So the baby gets egg yolks and what else? Liver?
Pureed liver.
Okay. What kind of things do women say about their menstrual health once they go to this kind of traditional diet?
Yeah, it really helps in all kinds of fertility problems for the men too.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add about Weston Price, who he was? How long has the Weston Price Foundation been going on? When did you start it?
We're up to 23 years now,
Okay.
and we publish a journal. We have a very active campaign to educate legislators about raw milk. We've had greatly increased access to raw milk. We have been very active during the coronavirus, pointing out that it's not a virus.
Yeah,
not a virus.
yeah, and we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I have to be so careful, but if I'm going to put something on YouTube, I've noticed that now I'm having to walk on eggshells because I know it's sad that we have to start this kind of self-censoring, but yeah, the Weston Price Foundation has been very active during this whole time of the global health circuit,
especially helping people deal with it and what to do. The raw milk, by the way, comes in, is very important because it's full of glutathione.
Okay.
And we recommend that people do the raw milk, kind of a fast on raw milk.
Yeah, and you've co-written a book with Dr. Tom Cohen. It's called The Contagion Myth and Why Viruses, including coronavirus, don't cause disease. And I think now would be a good time for me to segue into asking you about this. So just let's take 5 and I'll send you another Zoom link.
Okay, I have to go downstairs to get that.
Yeah.
And send it back up here.
Thanks.
Okay, and okay, all right.